All right, we got to talk about Todd Monken. Uh, I'm one of Todd Monken's biggest fans. More on that in a minute, but everyone has seen, I'm sure by now, the reports about Todd Monken, and it's really not a surprise. It's been rumored for a few weeks that several NFL teams might be interested in Todd Monken's services as an offensive coordinator, but over the last couple of days, we found out that he's interviewed already for at least one offensive coordinator position in the NFL last week, and is set to interview for at least one more offensive coordinator position this coming week. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think it is. I don't want to lose Todd Monken. I don't. I've been around long enough to know that when you have any type of success as a football program, football team, you're going to have some turnover in the coaching ranks, right? Your success is going to draw interest and attention from other teams, whether it's other college teams or in this case, NFL teams, right? Football has always been a copycat sport, always. And if there's a team out there that's impressed with what Georgia's doing, or any other team for that matter, then in a lot of cases you end up in these situations where other teams go, hey, if it's working at Georgia, let's go get the guys that are helping run it at Georgia, bring them here. So again, this is nothing new. All the top teams and top programs deal with this constantly. Georgia has dealt with this. This isn't or won't be, if it happens, the first time Georgia has lost coordinators, offensive and defensive. My sort of overall thought process as it relates to Georgia specifically with losing coordinators, it always concerns me more when we turn over an offensive coordinator as opposed to a defensive coordinator. And I think it's for obvious reasons. Kirby's a defensive genius. Whether you hate or love Kirby, hate or love Georgia, hate or love me, whatever, even Alabama fans, will begrudgingly give Kirby the credit he's due. I see it all the time in comment sections when it comes to his defensive coaching abilities, right? Kirby still has some critics out there in certain areas. I get it. I don't think there's anybody left on planet Earth who questions two things about Kirby Smart: his ability to recruit and his ability to coach defense. So when we turn over a defensive coordinator, I'm never happy about it, especially if it's coming off of a year or a series of years under a defensive coordinator where we performed really well. And let's be honest, generally that's the case. If your defense is terrible, there's not a long line of people that want your defensive coordinator. But in Georgia's case, Mel Tucker, we lost him. He became a head coach first at Colorado State, now at Michigan State. And of course, Dan Lanning, who replaced Mel Tucker, was hired away last offseason by Oregon. Mel Tucker then was replaced by Glenn Schumann mostly, and Will Muschamp. Sort of a co-DC situation going on there. Mostly Glenn Schumann, though, I think. And the defense at Georgia has sort of continued to just roll right along, right? It really hasn't mattered which coaches we've lost, or even really which players we've lost to, whether it be the NFL, graduation or transfer. The defense has kind of continued to roll along, and the one constant there, of course, is Kirby Smart. And I think that makes sense to anybody who knows anything at all about college football. At this point, if there's anybody out there doubting anything really about Georgia's defense, I don't know what to tell you, other than that you're extremely ignorant. Offensive coordinator, on the other hand, is a valid concern, I think, or should be a valid concern for UGA fans. Now, look, you've got that segment of UGA fans, and every fan base has a segment of their fan base that falls into this category. But nothing matters, right? It doesn't matter who we lose. We don't need anybody. We're going to be 100-0. Nothing matters. It doesn't matter which players we lose. It doesn't matter which coaches we lose. It doesn't matter which recruits or commitments flip away from UGA. Nothing matters. Georgia's going 100-0 no matter what because we have a G on the side of our helmet. So, there's that group of fans that are out there that could care less whether Todd Monken stays or goes. And it's funny, too, because, of course, These are the same type of fans that every player and every coach we have is the greatest of all time, right? Nobody can do no wrong. Every player is perfect. Every coach is perfect. Everything is hunky-dory 100% of the time. Disney dogs. And again, every fan base has a segment of fans that falls into this category. Everything about our team is the greatest it could possibly be. That, of course, includes Todd Monken. Well, then the news comes out that Todd Monken has interviewed with a head coaching, with an NFL team last week and has at least one more interview with an NFL team this coming week. And what do those same fans say? Not worried, don't need Todd Monken, easily replaceable. Okay. Okay. Now, I will admit that I tend to fall on the opposite end of the spectrum, and in some cases can come across just as delusional on the opposite end of the spectrum as the Disney dogs sound on their end of the spectrum. I think everything's a huge deal all the time, constantly. I don't know if it's because I grew up listening to Larry Munson call Georgia games and talk about Georgia. Larry Munson is famously the most pessimistic Georgia fan of all time. I mean, the sun was never shining, according to Larry Munson, to hear him talk. I mean, everybody knows, or maybe, I don't know about everybody, but, a lot of people know, like, Larry Munson's famous calls from 40 years ago or 20 years ago, and yeah, he's excited and all that. Those are game-winning plays and things like that. But if you really grew up listening to Larry Munson on the radio, he was extremely pessimistic. And anyway, I kind of fall into that category. So I tend to think everything is important and everything is a big deal. And sometimes I overestimate or over-exaggerate what I view to be negative news. I didn't like it when we lost Jermaine Burton last year. And I got clowned. Oh, Jermaine, terrible. He's scared to compete. He knows he's not as good as Ladd McConkey. Jermaine Burton was our leading wide receiver in 2021. The year Georgia won their first of the back-to-back Natties. Jermaine Burton was the leading wide receiver on the team. All year long, people talked about how great he was. The minute he announced he's transferring, you got the Disney dogs, doesn't matter, we don't need him, not any good, scared to compete. And now they think they're right because Georgia won a Natty and Bama went 11-2. That means they were right and Jermaine Burton's terrible. But, meanwhile, we all know why Jermaine Burton left to go to Bama. Had nothing to do with winning national titles. He wants to go to the NFL. And look, if you're a linebacker, a defensive lineman, an offensive lineman, a tight end, and you want to go to the NFL, you better come to Georgia. Because nobody's putting those position groups into the NFL right now like UGA is. If you're a wide receiver, Bama, Ohio State, wherever Lincoln Riley's at. Right? Don't we all know this? There are certain schools that just tend to produce NFL players from certain positions. UJ's not one of those schools when it comes to wide receivers. So I know why Burton left, and guess what? Burton had more yards receiving and more touchdowns last year at Alabama than he ever had in a season at UGA. So, am I saying he made the right or wrong decision? I don't know whether he made the right or wrong decision, but I understand why he made the decision he made. And same thing now, A.D. Mitchell, of course. Now, he was hurt most of this year. But it's widely known and accepted that he is Georgia's best wide receiver. He was Georgia's best wide receiver on the team. It's why it was such a big deal that he was out for the majority of the season. It's all everyone talked about. Oh, he's our best wide receiver. I hope we get him back for the playoffs. And we did. And he had the game-winning touchdown pass against Ohio State. He also had the game-winning touchdown pass against Alabama in the national title game the year before. Now, numbers-wise, he was nowhere to be found if you look at stats for Georgia this year because he didn't play basically from week 2 until the playoffs because he was hurt. But he's clearly the most talented and best wide receiver on the team. He announces he's transferring, and same thing. We don't need him. He's not any good. And this translates to coaches as well. And that's sort of, I know it's a long-winded way of getting around to it. But so I'm starting to see the same thing with Todd Monken now. And I'm going to tell you this about Todd Monken. The guy's an absolute genius offensively. Because I do not think Georgia offensively, from a talent perspective, is even top 10 in the country. And I'm dead serious. Now they're not horrible. They're not 50th talent-wise. I'm speaking just talent. I'm not talking about production or stats or, how well they played in college. Those are products of coaching and development. I'm talking from a pure standpoint. Look at the signing class Georgia just signed just now. It's indicative of the majority of classes under Kirby, but 8 of the top 10 players are defensive players. So, yeah, Georgia recruits at a ridiculous level. But the defensive recruiting is clearly a step above the offensive recruiting. And if you look at NFL draft picks, that bears itself out. The majority of Georgia players that get drafted are defensive players. So Todd Monken, to do what he has done at Georgia with the pieces he's had, has been remarkable. And let's not forget, both of the national title seasons, the last 2 years for Georgia, have been without our best wide receiver. And Georgia's not a team that stockpiles elite wide receivers like Ohio State. Ohio State loses Jackson and Jigma Smith. They've got Marvin Harrison, and everybody else. Emeka Ibuka, Julian Fleming. I mean, they've just got NFL wide receiver after NFL wide receiver. It's not the case at Georgia. It's just not. I like Ladd McConkey. I like Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint. I like Arian Smith and the 4 catches he gets a year. I like these players. These aren't elite level future Sunday playing wide receiver, star Pro Bowl type wide receivers. They're just not. I'm not knocking them. They're working out great at UGA. Why? Todd Monken. That's why. That's why. And look, I don't know what Todd Monken's going to do. I don't know if he is really interested in the NFL. I don't know if he's doing this just to do it. Some people have said, well, he's just doing it to try to get more money out of UGA. I doubt that's the reason. I know everybody always wants to make more money, but he's already the highest paid non-head coach in all of college football. He's the highest paid non-head coach in all of college football. He's the highest paid coordinator in football. Now, if it is about money, then pay him whatever he wants. Pay him whatever he wants. But I don't think it's about money. So does he really want to be back in the NFL? If you look over the course of his career, Todd Monken, he's never stuck around anywhere for more than a few years. It's kind of been a nomad. He's been in the NFL before. He's been in the college before. He's been a head coach before. But I don't want to lose him. And the idea that, well, it's no big deal if we lose him, he's easily replaceable. I wouldn't be so sure. Again, getting back to the coordinator situation in general at UGA, we lose a defensive coordinator. Okay, I still want to see who we're going to get, and I'm still curious, and want to make sure we get a good name and that kind of thing. But there's no reason to think that Kirby replacing a defensive coordinator is going to have some sort of huge impact negatively on Georgia's defense. I don't think. Offense, though, let's be real here. Let's look at Georgia's defensive coordinators. Mel Tucker, Dan Lanning, and now Glenn Schumann. Well, Mel Tucker has since been gobbled up and is a college head coach. Dan Lanning has since been gobbled up and is now a college head coach. Glenn Schumann is one of the hottest names when it comes to who other teams want. Bama wants him. Everybody wants him. He'll be a head coach soon. Let's look at Georgia's list of offensive coordinators under Kirby Smart. Jim Chaney. Well, this guy was a disaster. An absolute disaster. Run, pass. Run, pass. Run, pass. 3rd and 8, 5-yard pass every time. An absolute disaster. Jim Chaney. After that, James Coley. An even bigger disaster. Who remember? Oh, okay. Everybody knows this, right? Oh, Jake Fromm got worse every single year he was at UGA. I agree. He did. The numbers back that up. 2019, Jake Fromm's last year at Georgia, was his worst year. Well, Chaney was the offensive coordinator there for his first year. It was Coley after that. And the entire offense suffered in 2018 and 2019. And then Kirby hired Monken before the 2020 season. And had it not been for Georgia's egregious quarterback situation in 2020, who knows? But Georgia still had a pretty good year. First year with Todd Monken there. All the numbers were up offensively. If you don't remember, that's the year Dewan Mathis started at quarterback. Turns out he was terrible. They put Stetson Bennett in. Turns out he was mostly terrible too. They benched him, put JT Daniels in, and Georgia went on a run at the end of the year where they were scoring 45 points a game. JT Daniels was averaging 330 yards passing. It was unbelievable. They beat Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl. They finished, whatever they finished, 10-2, because that was a shortened season. Where they finished 9-2, 10-2, whatever it was. Their only two losses were to Bama and Florida. And then, that was Monken's first year, right? So then 2021, Bennett becomes the starter permanently. Second year under Todd Monken. Georgia goes on to win the national title. 2022, Todd Monken. Georgia goes on to win the national title, averaging 41 points per game. By far the best Georgia has looked offensively probably in my lifetime. There's been games here or there you can pick and point out, but I don't think you can overestimate Monken's importance to what has happened at UGA over the last 2 years. That's not to diminish Kirby Smart at all. Who hired him? Kirby. You know, so and it's not taking anything away from Kirby, but to act like, you know, oh, well, if we lose Monken, who most Georgia fans will tell you might be the best offensive coordinator we've ever had. Oh, no big deal. Easy to replace. Look at all the talent we have. Hey, I wouldn't be so sure about that, Disney dog. I love Kirby. I wish they'd give him a lifetime contract. Be fine with me. I don't want him going nowhere. He doesn't have a great track record with OCs. Jim Chaney, James Coley, and Todd Monken. Kirby's 1 for 3 when it comes to hiring offensive coordinators, with a home run, Monken, and 2 strikeouts, Chaney and Coley. So I do think it's a big deal if we lose Monken. I do think it's a big deal. It's an even bigger deal who Kirby chooses to replace him with. I'm not going to get into much of this here because this video is already too long. Mike Bobo was on staff. He was Georgia's offensive coordinator for 7 or 8 years under Mark Richt. I don't understand the hate for Mike Bobo from Georgia fans. I don't get it. Bobo's last 3 years as offensive coordinator, we averaged 36 points a game, 37 points a game, and 40 points a game. We were not losing games. Bobo was there from, 2007 to 2014. We weren't losing games in 12, 13, 14 because of the offense. Stop. Those were the Aaron Murray years. We were not losing games because of the offense. I don't know if y'all weren't watching back then. I don't understand the hate for Bobo. I'm not saying that I think Bobo should be the OC. But there seems to be this thought out there that, oh my God, I hope it's not Bobo. I don't know. I don't know. College football has changed a lot since the last time Bobo was an OC. Well, I guess he was an OC for 1 year at South Carolina, but it's hard to compare that to Georgia. But, so I don't know. So whether it's Bobo, whether it's someone else, whether he goes outside the program, whether it's an open interview situation, I don't know. But I think it's going to be, if Monken leaves, it's going to be a very big decision for Kirby, because I do not think it's an automatic slam dunk that whoever Kirby picks as OC is going to be a success. I don't think that's a slam dunk. Look at Bama, right? Bama's great, and Saban gets most things right. He has swung and missed at some coordinator positions here lately. Even Bama fans will tell you that. We all know Bama fans, right? And what do they want? The DC fired and the OC fired, and they got their wish. So there's no guarantee that whoever Monken's replacement is just going to keep rolling right along. I don't know. It does make me nervous, the thought of losing Todd Monken. Anyway, have a good morning.